Buckle up, folks. Ohio GOP lawmakers, they're gearing up this week to destroy your public school with 4 very bad property tax bills. Yes, Ohio has a property tax crisis, but let's be clear. This is 100% caused by Republican policies. Why? Because they've unconstitutionally gerrymandered a supermajority in Ohio, and they've been in charge for the last 30 years. It's their bad tax policies that got us to this point. There is no one else to blame. Tax policies, like those that favor giving out-of-control tax breaks to their rich corporate donors, we lost $12 billion with a B last year because of those tax breaks. And not to mention the tax breaks that they give to themselves and their rich friends. In fact, Ohio Republicans gave millionaires in Ohio one of the top 5 biggest tax breaks in the entire country this year. All that revenue, gone. Not only that, Republicans are not fully funding our public schools with our state tax dollars that's explicitly written in our state constitution. I'm sure you've heard by now that the way we fund our schools here in Ohio has been ruled unconstitutional like 9 times or something ridiculous because the funding relies too much on property taxes. Yeah, Republicans, they just ignore that. And they just keep starving our public schools of funding, pushing that burden of funding our schools onto property owners. In fact, in Ohio, we rank 45th in the nation in state funding for our public schools. How embarrassing is that? Meantime, we have the 8th highest property tax rate in the entire country, thanks to Ohio Republicans shifting the burden of paying for our public schools off of the state and off of businesses and onto individual property owners, you and me. Ohioans are fed up, understandably so. They're demanding relief. So Republicans have to start making it look like they're doing something about property tax, a crisis that they caused. But their solutions have nothing to do with actually solving the problem that got us here, like maybe making the rich corporate donors and rich friends pay taxes or having the state actually pay its share of our public school funding. Instead, their fixes are about sabotaging funding for our local public schools and our governments, our police and fire services. I didn't even touch on the billions of dollars in unaccounted taxpayer dollars that they're funneling to their rich private school friends in the form of vouchers. So our public schools are starving for funding, and the only option they have is to go to local voters for help in the form of levies. And now the Ohio GOP wants to take that option away from our local schools and make it even harder to get this funding. So what are public schools supposed to do? Because your public school is about to face some really tough choices if Republicans pass some of these bills. Ohio used to rank 5th in the nation in public schools. Now we've dropped to like the mid-20s, all because Republicans have been in power for the last 30 years. They're starving our schools of resources. It's all being done on purpose. We cannot trust Ohio Republicans. They already passed a bill a few weeks ago that they touted as the most meaningful property tax reform in decades. Guess how much money I save in the most meaningful property tax reform in decades? 0. I save $0. As do pretty much everyone in Cuyahoga County and any of you that live in an urban or suburban district. Most people overall, the average, they will save under $20 in the most meaningful property tax reform in decades. And it just hurts our local schools. Meantime, they are ignoring policies and bills that would actually provide immediate tax relief for our seniors and low-income families, like expanding the homestead exemption or a circuit breaker law. But that would mean the state would actually have to kick in some money to help provide that relief. And they don't want to do that. Instead, they rather hurt local schools and governments and take their funding away, even more than they already have. I'm telling you, if you love your public school, you need to be screaming at your state representative and your state senator. Tell them you want actual real property tax reform and stop ramming through these bills that make no significant impact on our property taxes and will only hurt our local schools and government. Like, give me a break. Come on. Links are in the comments.